Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem, Israel. Rabbi Chaim Richman here together with Yitzchak Reuven today, the 24th day of the month of Kislev, 5778. It's December the 12th, 2017, and this Shabbat is Parashat Miketz, and also the Sabbath of the blessing of the new moon, which will occur next week, Sunday night, and Monday and Tuesday, the 18th and 19th, the new moon of Tevet. But today, being the 24th day of the month of Kislev, that means that tonight begins the 8-day festival of Hanukkah. And we're all excited about that. Hanukkah is such an amazingly special time. It's a time of bringing extra light into the world, bringing the hidden light into the world. The 36 lights that we will be lighting throughout the festival correspond to the 36 hours of the hidden light that Adam enjoyed in the Garden of Eden before he moved to another location, before he was forced out. And a little bit of that light, the hidden light of creation by which God actually created the world originally and then saw that it was too good for this world and hid it for the next one. A little bit of that light comes out every time we light these Hanukkah candles. And it's also a direct reflection of the original light of the menorah of the Holy Temple. We're going to be talking a lot about Hanukkah in this broadcast. You might call it a gala Hanukkah special, I suppose, since it's beginning tonight. But first, we need to connect with the theme of Hanukkah, which is that it's a time of miracles, and it's a time of really tapping into our own miraculous, into our own potential for bringing about miracles, and mostly for standing up in what we believe in, which is what Hanukkah is really all about. Parshat Miketz, too, is also inexorably bound up with Hanukkah. You know, last week at the end of the Torah portion of Vayeshev, you know, we find Yosef stuck in Folsom Prison, and he just looks very hopeless and forlorn. And then in this week's Torah portion, all of a sudden, very, very quickly, he's catapulted to a tremendous position of authority and prominence. And how the tables have turned when he sees the dreams coming true, when he sees his brothers coming to him. But it was all with tremendous divine orchestration to bring about what had to be brought about for the future of the people of Israel and the world. And sometimes we're in a situation we really don't see why it's happening, but everything really is for a purpose. Everything is ultimately for the good. And that's one of the themes that I need to explore this week in our video Torah portion. One of the mysterious aspects of the concept of Yosef and his brothers that's really been bothering me. But anyway, last week we were talking just at the time that we recorded Temple Talk, we were talking about what President Trump was going to be doing regarding his declaration about Jerusalem. And it was that very evening, I think, after we recorded Temple Talk, that he made his historic announcement that the United States of America officially recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. That was greeted very warmly by the Prime Minister of Israel, Netanyahu. It was greeted very warmly by the majority of Israelis. A lot of excitement that generated in the Jewish world, in most of the Jewish world, in the Jewish world that is still half normal, I guess. And then, of course, the world. The world. A lot of people were very, very upset with President Trump's proclamation, although I would think that to declare Jerusalem the capital of Israel is kind of obvious, because it is mentioned like 699 times in the Torah, because it was always the capital of the Jewish people. The Jewish people had no other capital, and it was never an Arab capital, and it is not mentioned anywhere in the Quran. And it is the center of Jewish life for, I don't know, over 3,000 years of recorded history for sure. It's how we end every prayer every day. It's how we are totally focused on the spiritual significance of our lives. It's all about Jerusalem. So, you know what I want to say before I say anything else? I want to say that Jerusalem was under siege in 701 BCE, in 587 BCE, in 70, in 614, in 637, in 1099, in 1244, in 1917, and in 1948. All those were years that Jerusalem was under siege. And I'll just cut to the chase, Yitzchak. It seems to me that what the world is basically trying to do is keep Jerusalem under siege. This is just an extension of all of that. And ironically, the whole concept of Hanukkah is about the liberation of Jerusalem, but not only Jerusalem, the city, but Jerusalem and everything that it represents as far as what you could call religious freedom, really. But it's a lot deeper than that. It has to do with what the root of the conflict between the Greek Empire, as it's known, and Israel was really all about, and what the whole story of Hanukkah is really all about. And about that, by the way, I want to mention another thing, just as I had this obsessive-compulsive need to read to you the years that Jerusalem was under siege. What does this list have in common? Okay? Ancient Egypt, the Philistines, the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, ancient Greece, the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, the Crusaders, the Spanish Inquisition, the Nazi Germany, and the former Soviet Union. They are all civilizations or empires, as it were, of various peoples that attempted throughout history to destroy the Jewish people. And none of them really are around anymore.
Yeah, pretty much.
So what is this really all about? What is this really all about? This whole, the world warned Trump. I'm just getting over something here. I also have to laugh. It's just, I don't know if I can get through this without cracking up, but the world warned Trump of dire consequences.
Dire.
And the spin of the media throughout the world was that Trump was defying worldwide dire warnings. And also that another spin was that Trump was reversing 70 years of United States policy, in other words, policy that was etched in gold, that should be upheld.
Right. Absolutely.
Because why? Because there is an idea, an official position, which is the position of most of the world, and the idea is, and I quote, the international and legal status of Jerusalem is unresolved, unquote. And the United Nations position is that Jerusalem, by the way, it's the same position as the papacy also. Jerusalem has to be an international city. And of course, the dire warnings and all the screaming that we're hearing from the world about how Trump could have done such a tremendously irresponsible thing, and now it's just being used by his detractors to prove that he's crazy. Because look, I mean, we said he was crazy. Here he goes. And for what reason now, of all times? Why in the world should he recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel? Well, could it be because no other country in the world is afforded the distinction of not having the right to claim their own capital? Could it be because it's just the right thing to do? And there's all kinds of pundits in America
that it was written into
blaming
law
the
22 years
evangelical
ago?
Christians. There's all kinds of people in America that are saying, oh, we just did it to please these, to please those, for these kind of points. Maybe it was just the right thing to do.
Trump? Oh, Rabbi, really? 22 years ago, Congress declared Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel.
Yes, they passed a law
to move
that the embassy has to be moved.
Move the embassy. So
but
he's just following through on that after the last three presidents
waiver,
have promised to do it but didn't do it.
And he kept his promise. How remarkable.
Unpolitical that is.
How unusual. But Yitzchak, and then there's all these posts going around and all these people very excited. We saw a rash of photoshopped images of Trump in various historic roles and all sorts of things. Somebody put on a WhatsApp group a picture of the Dome of the Rock with a big sign on it that said the Trump Tower or something, and there was a cartoon showing that Trump wanted to move the U.S. Embassy in the form of the Holy Temple to the Temple Mount. Let's not get carried away. Yeah. He's not my Messiah, and he's not even my Cyrus. He's just a pawn in God's game, as we all are. And I'm very proud of him, and I'm very happy and impressed that he did the right thing, and that America did the right thing so that America doesn't have to add its name to that list of empires that tried to come against the Jewish people. Because coming against the Jewish people, which is the story of every war,
Israel, you will be blessed.
The story of every war that's waged against Israel is that it's a war that's being waged against the God of Israel. But the fact is, your friend with the stringy hair, the Italian,
I don't know who you're addressing.
Mogherini.
I don't know why you every temple talk.
Because
you
I
take
know
the
that she
opportunity
really upsets
to accuse
you.
me of being. So that's your definition of friendship.
Mogherini, right?
You're upsetting me now, and you are my best friend.
I'm sorry.
Maybe you're right.
Her reaction was, by the way, Bibi has met with her since, and and she tried to put him in his place, and he basically said like, "You're all crazy." But anyway, she basically said to Trump that you are going to bring us, and these were her words, back into the dark ages. Yeah. And of course, the Palestinians announced 3 days of rage. 3 days of rage, which we've actually lived through so far.
And they really pretty much resemble every other
exactly.
day of
That's
rage
what we found so funny about that expression. Like, tell me something. Now it's going to be like specifically like rage. Like normally, are they doing like calisthenics? Are they having like pottery classes? And are they doing transcendental meditation? Usually they're so sweet. So no, these are 3 days of rage. And actually, Yitzchak, some stuff has been going on. There was a terrorist attack at the central bus station here in Jerusalem, about 2 minutes from where we're sitting right now, 2 days ago. And a guard, a 25-year-old fellow, was knifed very, very grievously. And today I can say that what's being called a Hanukkah miracle is that he is making a remarkable recovery and he's no longer in danger. There have been numerous attacks here in Israel. A 9-year-old girl was wounded by rocks. There were rocket fire on Ashkelon last night, and 2 days ago there was a rocket launched from Gaza that landed in a kindergarten in Sderot. There have been attacks that have been going on last night. The IDF's Iron Dome brought down, 3 or 4 missiles that had been fired. And then across the world, there was a kosher restaurant in Amsterdam that was attacked. But I understand that the attacker wasn't particularly upset about Trump's position on Jerusalem. No, he was upset about Israel's treatment of Gaza.
Right.
And then, of course, there was a synagogue that was firebombed in Sweden, which also had nothing to do with anything. It's just what you do.
And then there was there
was a tremendous demonstration in
New York,
in the U.S. Embassy in Beirut where they tried to break into and set on fire.
And there were mobs in Times Square in Manhattan. And
yes,
mobs
there was a
in
rally
London,
in Manhattan calling for killing the Jews in Times Square in Manhattan. And speaking of Manhattan, just yesterday there was a would-be suicide bomber, a young man that was born in Bangladesh, whose name was not Moshe Cohen, but he had an Arabic name that I can't exactly pronounce, and he. Was he upset about Jerusalem? Or?
First, he said he declared his allegiance to ISIS, and then someone made a connection between that and Jerusalem, but then someone else pointed out that it takes more than a week to put together the type of apparatus he was carrying strapped to his body. So you can do anything now and point to Jerusalem, and everybody will say, oh, see, you proved our point. It was a horrible thing that Mr. Trump did.
Oh, by the way, and in my list of things that I wanted to mention that have been happening the past couple of days, it also has been emphasized here in the media that the Palestinian terrorists are still using Red Crescent ambulances for cover. Mm-hmm. Not only have there been photographs of stone throwers and Molotov cocktail throwers standing behind ambulances for cover because they know that the IDF will not try to intervene with an ambulance, but they also have been using, the ambulances have been used to take them from place to place, to reposition themselves. So, in any event, when I mentioned that whole idea of the list of occupiers and that have come against Israel, and when I mentioned the whole idea of the years that Jerusalem was besieged, and you can add this one too, because the world's reaction is basically a desire to continue the siege against Jerusalem. What I really don't understand about all of this, about the dire warnings and about the world's reaction to the very natural and reasonable and historic truth announcement that, yes, Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, what I really don't understand is that by giving these dire warnings and by worrying about going back into the dark ages and about worrying about torpedoing the chance for peace and all the ridiculous claptrap, empty, moronic statements that have been issued by all of these so-called leaders, and the Turkish guy, what's his name?
Erdogan.
Yeah, and the North Korean rocket man called Trump a mentally deranged dotard. And everybody
and Putin, who recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital within the past year, also.
But he forgot he did that, I guess.
Yeah, he forgot, I guess.
But anyway, the thing is, that I find the strangest about all of this is that basically what all of these countries are saying is that you have to give in to terror, because if you do this, you're going to upset them so much. That's what she meant. Stringy haired Italian lady. I can't. Mogherini. That's what she meant by you're gonna blast us back to the Dark Ages. That's what they mean when they say dire consequences. That's what they mean when they say alienating the Arab world, and that's what some in the Arab world are trying to do, despite the fact that Jerusalem has never been important to Islam, and that this is all a revision of history. Haven't we advertised? Haven't we actually been talking for years about the pamphlets that were published by the Islamic Waqf that declare unanimously that, and you can see this on our website, that the Temple Mount is universally acknowledged as being the original location of the Holy Temple, and this is where David offered offerings, and that it's only since 1948 that the Arab world has been trying to leverage Jerusalem as its own. So, but I'm saying, as soon as you start talking about these dire consequences, you're basically saying we have to give them what they want, because otherwise they're going to wreak havoc. And that's exactly what the Arab leaders say when they say that you will suffer the consequences of this, that we will bring about days of rage, that this will be met with violence. This is all they do. This is the only thing that they do.
But
they
Rabbi,
threaten violence.
I think it's even more serious than that. I don't think that the West simply is acquiescing or giving into violence. The West is encouraging and promoting it by saying these things. They're basically giving a green light to the terrorists, to the Arabs who want to disrupt and disturb the peace and have violence. They're telling them, go for it, guys. We're with you. We support you. I mean, there's no clear instance of this in Jerusalem, where it is by virtue of 70 years of fact, modern history, the capital of Israel. I mean, what's the argument here? You're just recognizing facts on the ground, and nobody wants to, because they don't want it to be that way. So the West says dire consequences. There, it's a wink to the Arab leaders who
to bring it on. Basically.
I mean, and the relatively muted response here in Israel was done at the behest of Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, who for days was saying, telling people to go out there and vote.
Right, and basically,
on the Temple Mount there was protest, and if you looked at the video which there was of the Temple Mount, they're all carrying Turkish flags. Why? Because Turkey is investing millions of dollars in East Jerusalem and in organizations that want to incite and inflame the situation.
I'm telling you something. Turkey is so evil. So it's just a kingdom of arrogance and evil. So he goes along. So Turkey goes and reprimands Netanyahu as Israel being a regime that's killing children. What in the world is he talking about? What in the world is he talking about? So Netanyahu says that he's not going to allow Turkey to lecture him. But the idea is, basically, when Abbas and all the Arab leaders say, you're destroying the chance for peace, you're killing peace, basically what they're saying is, because you're not giving me my way, because if you don't give me the whole thing that I want, then I am going to basically wreak havoc. And it's not Jerusalem that they want. It's the whole package. Mm-hmm. It's the whole 9 yards. Mm-hmm. It's the destruction of Israel. They've always said that. That's never changed. And nobody addresses that. But they've never changed their charter, which calls for the total destruction of the state of Israel. So what does Jerusalem have to do with it? Jerusalem is nothing but an excuse for them to destroy Israel.
Absolutely.
Enter the theme of Hanukkah, which is not only about the defilement of the temple by the Greeks and the uprising of the Maccabees and their victory, and not only about the miraculous find of the one cruse of oil that was still pure and bore the seal of the high priest. It's also about the concept that the people of Israel rose up as one man and declared, nobody is going to tell us how to live our lives. Nobody's going to tell us who our God is. And one of the famous statements that our sages make about the psychological warfare that was waged against Israel by the Greeks was that they forced them to write the words on the horn of a ram, to write the words, "We have no portion in the God of Israel." And they tried to alienate them from God and make them feel that there is no God really, which is what mass media does today. And the whole concept of the people of Israel being motivated and inspired by their leaders to rise up and fight for what they believe in, nothing's changed here at all. It's the exact same theme. And Hanukkah then was a battle over our home, first and foremost over God's home, which is what the Holy Temple is all about, but over our home. The enemy came into the land and tried to Hellenize it, tried to make a wedge between the people of Israel and their God. They enacted decrees against the observance of the Torah and its commandments. And first and foremost, they came against Jerusalem and against the temple. So just add it to the list of sieges, what's going on now, and the world's reaction, the world showing these true colors about what our own relationship with our own land is, our own capital, our own city, and just the absurdity. And by the way, what's really changed so far? I mean, he said it would take years to move the embassy. And the children of American citizens that are born right now in Jerusalem still don't have Jerusalem listed as the capital of Israel in their United States passport. And it's still the only country in the world and the only city in the world that will not be listed as the city, as the capital of that country. It's still in this nebulous state of in between. But yet we hope that this is a very positive development, and that the world will follow suit and realize that we're not going anywhere, and that this is where we belong, and this is our capital, and allow Jerusalem to bring this light into the world, which is really what it's all about. And there's the music. Mm-hmm. And we'll be right back.
We will.
Here on Temple Talk, coming to you from Jerusalem, Israel.
The eternal capital.
Doesn't get better than that. Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk. This is Yitzchak Reuven with Rabbi Chaim Richman here in Jerusalem, Israel's capital of Israel. Today is the 24th day of the month of Kislev, 5778, 12th of December 2017. Tonight, the 25th of Kislev, of course, is the first day of the 8-day festival of Hanukkah, the festival of lights, as it's sometimes called, the festival of freedom. And this coming Shabbat, we read Parashat Miketz. And this coming next week, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday, 2-day Rosh Chodesh, which begins the month of Tevet, Hanukkah being the one holiday in the Jewish calendar that actually spans 2 months. We were talking about United States recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. And recognition is a big theme, I think, Rabbi, in these parshiot. Last week's parsha, of course, and this week's upcoming parsha. The first time that word recognition is mentioned, I think, is when the brothers bring Yosef's coat that they had drenched in the blood of a lamb and brought it to their father and say, "Do you recognize this coat?" And their father Yaakov, of course, draws the conclusion that his son had been slaughtered and this is his blood-drenched cloak. Next time it's mentioned is when Tamar says to her father-in-law, Yehuda, do you recognize this signet ring? And Yehuda, of course, recognizes it and then has to recognize his own sin and admit to it. And that is a very, very big attribute, the ability to do that. And I think it's the first time that it's mentioned in the Torah that someone actually owned up to something they had done wrong and said, I'm wrong, you're right, and did tshuva, repented for their deed. And then, of course, in this week's Parsha, when the brothers meet Yosef, they don't recognize him, but he recognizes them. And of course, the ultimate mutual recognition will take place in the following Parsha. But the ultimate recognition, of course, is the recognition that we are brothers. And that is really the theme of this entire tale of Yaakov and of Yosef and his brothers, and I think it's the theme of the entire book of Genesis, that brothers need to recognize that they are brothers and that they are beholden to one another and that they need to look out for one another because we are our brother's keepers. And when Yosef was looking for his brothers and he met that mysterious man in the field, and the man said, "Can I help you?" And Yosef said, "I'm looking for my brothers. It's my brothers I seek." I think that's what it's all about. We seek God, and we can't seek God and we can't recognize God in our lives if we can't recognize our own brothers. And I think that's really the bottom line. And so getting back to the current events, recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, recognizing the obvious, recognizing a fact of reality for 3,000 plus years.
Like the brothers were right in front of,
right.
He was right in front of their face.
Yeah.
So this is very beautiful what you're saying, but nothing had changed when they recognized him. They just weren't ready to recognize him. But it was obvious, and he was right there, and like nothing's changed about Jerusalem. It's always been our capital. It's always been the center of the heart of the Jewish people. So, famously, everybody knows, as Rashi cites the teaching, that they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them. They didn't recognize him because when he left them, he was just a slip of a boy, but now he had a beard. Mm-hmm. I've always found that just doesn't work for me because I meet people that I haven't seen in, 40 years, 50 years, and they might have a beard, but they look the same, because you recognize someone that...
Maybe he was wearing glasses.
That you had some sort of relationship with. And I think the deeper thing is that, if you're not expecting to see someone, the last mm-hmm. person that they were expecting to see,
right.
and especially to be in that position over them, was Yosef. And I think it's the same thing here. It's like people just aren't ready to recognize Jerusalem for what it is, because when you recognize it, when the world recognizes Jerusalem for what she is, it is also bringing about a certain responsibility that they have. It's a reality check. It's a commitment, and it is a recognition of much more than just what city is the capital of Jerusalem. It's like I'm saying, what's the capital of Arkansas? No offense to my listeners in Arkansas. It's not the same thing at all, because according to the Torah, according to the Bible, Jerusalem means something for the whole world.
Another aspect of recognition that's come up, and I've gotten some emails from people I'm close to in the States who have written to me saying, "What has he done now? Trump, he's created all this violence and done all these horrible things. What do you think?" Meaning me, about his recognition. And of course I wrote back saying it's like the best thing, it's about time, and he did a good thing, and all these dire warnings are a bunch of nonsense. And then one of the people wrote back to me and said, "Yeah, I guess, I guess I just so much don't like that man that I couldn't accept that I couldn't recognize that he could do something that was good."
That took a lot of gumption and a lot of commitment and a lot of integrity to do.
Yeah, and he was fighting his own advisors in the State Department, which has had a stranglehold.
According to reports, he was sick and tired of being told that it's not the right time. He had a real spark of divine inspiration here.
And of course, it was 70 years ago that Harry Truman was told it wasn't the right time to recognize the state of Israel when Israel declared its independence.
So all his advisors in all the world are coming to say to him, no, you can't do that because there's going to be violence. And then the Arabs come along and say, if you do that, we're going to be violent. It's like, so the whole world's reaction is like to give in to terror. Like, if they're going to be violent, we can't upset them. So that's how you want to live your life, basically.
Yeah. What a shame. What a sad way to live your life. And of course, Hanukkah, as I mentioned, a holiday that we celebrate freedom, what freedom is all about, and the willingness to fight for our freedom. Yes, violence in the form of evil decrees and oppression was being enacted against the Jews of the times of the Maccabees. And they said, we're not going to stand for this violence. We're not going to stand for these rules that deny us who we are and won't recognize the importance of our lives and who is our God and which is our capital. So it's a theme that just has been reverberating throughout the millennia. And here it is today. And it seems, that there's still a nation that carries the spirits of the Maccabees, and there's still a nation that carries the oppressive spirit of Antiochus and the Greek oppressors at the time, because that's, as you've been pointing out, that's what the Western world, with the exception of the United States at this point, seems to be endorsing the stand of Antiochus. I should mention, of course, Czechia, who has come out very for and moving, recognizing Jerusalem, and moving their embassy
Republic of Czechoslovakia.
Yeah, a former Czechoslovakia, Czechia
right.
now.
Oh, it's called Czechia? I'm sorry.
And I'm quite certain that there will be, in the near future, probably begin with a trickle, and then more and more nations, I'm sure, will move their embassies, because I think they've been waiting for this.
Well, the EU and a few other countries have made it clear that they're not moving it. And by the way, Mr. Trump, in Kol HaKavod, he also said a couple of other things that were not to my liking.
Not so great, no.
He said, for example, that this, and he went out of his way to mention that this in no way should be interpreted that there should be any change on the Temple Mount.
Right.
He went out of his way to mention the status quo on the Temple Mount. He's
Right.
talking about me.
Right.
He's talking about you. That
Right.
was very personal.
Right.
He's basically saying, don't you think there that you could pray on the Temple Mount, because that we're not changing. And then he also mentioned the dirtiest of words, the two-state solution.
Mm-hmm.
He said that if the two, at least he said, if the two sides are interested, he's not against the two-state solution. So, for all it's worth, this is we view as a positive development, and maybe even you could call it something of magnificent proportions. I wouldn't call it biblical proportions, but I think that he really rose to his potential, and I think that he did the right thing. But it's not up to him or America to determine our future. It's up to the Jewish people, and it's up to the leaders of Israel to be determined and to believe in themselves and in the righteousness of their own cause. Speaking of which, again, the themes of the festival of Hanukkah that we are ushering in tonight all over the world, the whole concept of bringing the hidden light into the world, of the potential for the miraculous during this time. When we kindle those lights, I want you to know every single night you can ask for a miracle. It's like a personal message that God is giving you when you light those lights and you see the reflection of Aaron the high priest lighting the light of the temple menorah. We say Hallel, the festive prayers of thanksgiving on this festival, because it was a festival that took place, it was a miracle that took place in the land of Israel, and because what this time is all about is about revealing the fact that even though Hashem's presence in the world is hidden, He wants us to bring it out. He wants us to expose it. It's about revealing His presence. And so the question is, what is your miracle going to be? That's what you have to ask for. So, again, what was this all about? I keep saying it was a fight over our home. It was a fight over the Temple Mount, Har Habayit, the mountain of the home. It was a fight over the home of Hashem, the Holy Temple. And it was a fight over our home, the land of Israel, and our right to self-determination, but our right to sovereignty, really more than self-determination, to sovereignty in our own land, without evil, heathen, outside influences. And we're still facing the same battle today. And I think that that's what the West is all about, by trying to foist its values on us, and and I think that the siege that they're holding us in now is just a continuation of this fight. So famously, the story of Hanukkah is about the fact that Greek wisdom, which was prevalent in the world at the time, was all about not believing in something that can't be seen. It was all about the preeminence of the physical. It was a worship of the physical. It was a worship of the body, and it was without soul. It was about celebrating that which is physically and scientifically demonstrable as being real, and nothing else as being real. And this was really the whole battle. And interestingly, we are taught that there was a certain emphasis that was placed by the Greeks when they made these decrees against Israel. Again, decrees that were designed to hide the divine presence from the world, to drive a wedge between Israel and her God, to banish God's presence from the world, and to subjugate Israel, and to create and to turn Israel into just another nation. It was about it was a battle against the spiritual values of Israel. It wasn't about physical annihilation. The threat against Israel during Hanukkah wasn't physical, like the story of Purim, where Haman basically made a decree that all of the Jews would be physically killed. Now, don't get me wrong, hundreds of thousands of Jews were murdered during the more than 20 years of wars that took place. The story of Hanukkah, the miracle of Hanukkah took place a couple of years into the battles, and they continued for many years afterwards. The thing is, as a side point of this, of the goal of the campaign against Israel, which was its spiritual destruction, hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed, but that wasn't the goal. The goal was to destroy them spiritually. So they enacted certain decrees, the enemy. And we learn about what these decrees were. Specifically, they forbade them to study Torah, of course, because the Torah is our life and our entire connection to who we are as a people, our walk. They forbade the observance of the Sabbath. They forbade the performance of the commandment of circumcision. And they forbade Rosh Chodesh, the establishment, the fixing of sacred time, of the new moon, as we'll be observing next month. And I want you to open up your heart in the deepest way, because I want to really analyze what this is really all about. What does this mean, that these were the decrees that they made? And again, remember, don't forget that what the Greek Empire, the invaders that defiled the temple, what they represented is this very shallow, physical, artistic, cultural existence, which is to be followed, with no underpinnings there of any sort of spiritual dimension. So by forbidding the study of Torah, of course, that's the first step in destroying anything spiritual, because they wanted to cut out our ability to infuse our reality with spiritual meaning, which is what Torah is all about, and the performance of the commandments. It's about infusing our reality with spiritual meaning, and it's about uplifting our reality to a level of human excellence. That's what Torah is all about. So then they forbade the observance of Shabbat, because the observance of Shabbat is the greatest demonstration of a partnership between man and God, because just as God created the world and continues the creative process, we reflect that by observing Shabbat. So they wanted to cut our connection to God. They wanted to forbid circumcision, because the sign of circumcision in the human body is what catapults the human body from being a temple of narcissism and of self-worship and of physicality and the offspring of physicality, which is lust and unbridled self-centeredness. Circumcision means taking that vessel and dedicating it to God and uplifting it completely. It's a completely different dimension of reality, right? I was thinking about the other thing that is talked about less. What does it mean that the Greeks wanted to forbid the children of Israel from keeping Rosh Chodesh. Like, what is the big deal about Rosh Chodesh? It happens every month, It's the new moon. It's the lunar cycle. It is a time-oriented idea. But I want you to know on the deepest level what this is really all about, because it's mind-blowing. What does it mean that we keep Rosh Chodesh, that we sanctify the new moon, that we mark that aspect of time? Chodesh, which is the Hebrew word for month, as you can recognize, is the root. It's the same word as Chadash, which means new. And it's the new moon. It's the new month. But what Rosh Chodesh really represents, when the Jewish people when they observe the mitzvah, the commandment of the observance of the new moon every month, it's about making a statement that we believe in Hidchadshut, which is the ability to be renewed. The new moon, the new month, is about being renewed. And being renewed and believing in renewal is the very opposite of this Greek one-sided culture. And this is the crux of the whole matter. This is breathtaking what I'm telling you here. Because they wanted the children of Israel to be to be crestfallen, to be downtrodden, to be of a mindset. This is what they wanted them to have, the mindset that, you know what? Nothing is new. You can't change anything. Everything is just the way it is. And there's no possibility for growth, for teshuvah, for changing. And you can change. I swear you can. You can change. You can go from one extreme to the other. You know that. You can change. And that's the beauty of life, especially when you're connected to Torah. And this is exactly what they didn't want. And you know what? I got to tell you the same thing here today with Western culture, with the inane babble of relentless social media that has reduced an entire generation to a span of attention that 3 seconds is a long time for them, and it's got to just be a picture with a punchline, and that's it, because it's hopeless. It's like, can you show me anything new? Can you show me something new? Rosh Chodesh means that everything is imbued with the power of bringing the divine into this world, like the power of prayer. You know what prayer is all about? You know why prayer is such an unbelievable thing? And it's the same concept exactly. It's that you can change everything. Speak up, stand up, fight. That's what prayer is all about. It's a type of war. It's a type of being a warrior. And that's why the expression is that the armament, sages teach that the weapon of Mashiach is prayer. Because it's a weapon. You can change everything. And so this is so deep. You know why the Greek invaders that defiled the temple wanted to outlaw Rosh Chodesh, the new moon, the observance of the new month? Because they're the opposite of that. They want you to think, this enemy Klippa wants you to think, nothing will ever change. Everything is always going to be the same. Yesterday and today and the day afterwards, there's no change. It's all just lulling you into this complacency and this kind of demonic listlessness and hopelessness. And you know what the very opposite of that, my friends? The Holy Temple. The Holy Temple is the center of newness. And every day in the Holy Temple brings about a sense of being able to change completely and be able to be reborn. And that's why they struck at the Holy Temple. That's why they defiled the Holy Temple. That's why they wanted to enslave the mentality of the people of Israel into thinking that they have no relationship with God, that they have no portion in the God of Israel. And that's what's happening to the world today. It's like this listlessness, this giving up on everything. And everything that Israel represents in the world and everything that Jerusalem represents in the world is newness and change. And so nothing's changed. The battle is still being fought today. But I want you to know this idea, this insight that I'm sharing with you about Rosh Chodesh is unbelievable, because that's exactly why they decreed against time itself, because the Jewish people are instructed in the Torah to be masters of time. And instead they wanted us to be slaves of time, like most of the world today is a slave of time.
And that's a description. Slave of time means more than 3 seconds is beyond your attention span. So as you said, Rabbi, it's all about change and the possibility of change. And again, getting back to our Parsha, that was all about change and be able to recognize that reality has a reason, that timeline has a reason and a purpose, and there's good in it, and there's good in what God has planned for us, and there's good in our future. And all those naysayers are those same oppressors that just want to stuff us into a little box of hopelessness and helplessness, and like the Maccabees of old, we're not going to stand for it. We are fighting to this day for our rights, fighting for our freedom, fighting for renewal, and fighting for the God of Israel, and fighting for God's light to once again flood the world with knowledge of Him. And that, my friends, is what Hanukkah is all about. Hanukkah begins tonight. So I would like to, on behalf of both of us, on behalf of all of us here in Israel, to wish everybody a very, very happy, a very, very light-filled, joy-filled Hanukkah, and all Jerusalem, yes. 8 days to contemplate the light and contemplate the possibility, the potential for renewal, and that's how miracles happen. Thanks for being with us. Temple Talk.